Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Friday, June 6, 2025. I am Bishop Darrell Watkins, the Senior Minister of Sunshine Cathedral. With me today are Bishop Robert Griffin, Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell, and Reverend Kevin Tisdall. We are the Queer God Squad. Visit sunshinecathedral.org to learn more about us.
Queer God Squad was created by Hotspots Happening Out to support our mission to explore the value of faith in the LGBTQ community. There is no streaming TV show like this in the entire world.
In 2025, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of Hotspots magazine, the 5th anniversary of Queer News Tonight, with nearly 10,000 stories and 10 million views in 2024. We will produce the 25th anniversary of the Stonewall Pride Parade and Festival on June 14th, Pride Fest Diversity Pride in August, and Pride Fort Lauderdale next February.
We are the largest nonprofit LGBTQ media organization in America, and we encourage you to support our mission to inform, entertain, and educate our community and allies.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral Perspective, breaking down the Q word. We're often asked by people of certain age cohorts and demographics, when did queer become an acceptable word? Of course, it happened organically and over time, but it has been used in a positive context for over half a century in academic, political, and even progressive theological circles, but has been even in mainstream culture for over half that time. In social science, queer theory emerged in the early 90s out of the queer studies and women's studies disciplines as a post-structuralist critical theory. Queer theory queers, or spoils, or reads against, or challenges gender binaries and heteronormativity. Politically, as far back as the 80s, the word was being embraced or reclaimed by people to make it a word that instills pride rather than shame, a word that was ours to use happily rather than allow it to be a weapon used against us to victimize us, and to include all segments of the community: gay, lesbian, bisexual, straight allies, transgender, gender non-conforming, intersex, questioning, etc. There's lots of ways to be queer, but an ideally unified queer community. In theology, queer theology uses religion and sacred texts to affirm and empower same-gender loving people, and people all along the continuum of gender, and to challenge and deconstruct the ways religion has been misused to promote homophobia and intolerance. So as an academic, political, and theological term, queer has been in use for multiple decades. People at this table range in age from 57 to 70, and we've all embraced the term for many years. I, for almost all of my adult life. That says it. That says it. I love that queer theory, queer theology reads against oppressive systems, reads against what has always been used to maintain the status quo, to maintain privilege for some, power for some. And so we read scripture from the margins to the margins, and anything that has been used to protect white people, men, straight people, rich people, Westerners, whatever has been used to give unearned and even unfair privilege to some over others, we challenge that. We read the same text, but we read it in a way that challenges what those same texts have been used to affirm. The same thing happened with slavery. The people who were supporting the slave trade, they saw Paul telling people, slaves, obey your masters. The people enslaved, they saw this great exodus where people were like, see you later, and got up out of there. That's what queer readings do. They find the queers in the story, they find where queers are being oppressed and rebut it, and they use that for all marginalized people. We've borrowed this from liberation theology, from feminist theology, from womanist theology, from black theology. And so these contextual and liberative theologies, queer theology is one more, where we are empowering queer people, we are deconstructing the things that hurt queer people, and we're finding the queer in the sacred and the sacred in the queer. Now, we said it was done in all of these academic settings, also theological and political, but let me give you this much. out of the list of like this, let me give you this much to show you how mainstream this is. These are programs that offer majors, minors, or master's degrees. A bachelor's degree, or a minor, or a master's degree, or even higher, or sometimes a certificate. These are places that have queer studies programs. Universities that you've heard of. Universities all over the place, in the Midwest, in the South, everywhere. These are universities that have some form, and named such, queer studies programs. Cal State Northridge, Columbia University, the University of Washington, New School University, or the New School, the University of New Hampshire, Oregon State, Princeton, the University of Colorado at Boulder, Florida International University, the University of Pennsylvania, the College of Worcester, Hampshire College, Denison University, Pace University, Brooklyn College, New York University, San Diego State, Hobart Smith College, the University of California at Berkeley, Duke University, Illinois State University, Indiana University, the City University of New York. And you see these people being all shady and give me side eye like, all right, we get it, we get it.
No,
we
no,
were
no, no.
enjoying it.
Oh.
I love it because
Let's pretend they do, because that's my way out of it. So, since they are giving me shade and side eye, I better quit so they can talk. But that is how ubiquitous and common it is. So when we fight against it, we're fighting against gravity.
Right.
We're fighting against water. We're fighting against air. This is what is, and people are being educated in very empowering ways. State U's, city colleges, Ivy League, all of it.
Right. When I was doing my DMin at Boston University, right, exactly, I looked at queer theology and actually how we can even break that apart even further, looking at a lesbian theology. But no, I was giving you the side eye because those are the ones that you thought of off the top of your head. There's a whole lot more.
They saw me writing down.
Exactly. There's a whole lot more.
Oh, sure.
And it's really incredible that we can take that now, queer theology, queer studies, and make that our own. Make that our own.
And we are not a homogeneous group.
Almost.
I'm talking about I'm talking about the queer community as a whole.
Oh, yeah.
I am, as was mentioned, getting close to 70, and a lot of my cohort had a lot of trouble with that word. I remember the first time I started using it freely was probably in the late 1990s. And a lot of folk at the church I was at the time were like, why are you using that word? When you got to that church, you got the same side eye that I got in using that word. They never fully embraced the thought that we can take a word that had at one time had a little stank on it and polish it up and make it look and sound good. I think, though, that most of my cohort has caught up. When I'm talking cohort, I'm talking about age group, has caught up and understands that the word queer is a positive word. And I think that was what their biggest problem was, that it wasn't a positive word, that it was a word that people threw at us when they were beating the crap out of us. So it took a little while to get cleaned up and get bandaged up and get healed before a lot of my people understood that we were talking about something positive.
And even with all the things we've been talking about, it's research, it's political use, it's theological use, it's academic use, it's political use, it's empowerment use, it's decades long use, blah, blah. Even without all of that, words mean what we say they mean.
Yes.
Right.
And so if I'm using it, I'm obviously using it in an empowering context.
Right.
Now, if Miss Bully is throwing it at me, blah, blah, but you know what? Since I haven't heard that, I've heard lots of mean words, but I haven't heard that word used against me since almost the day I started using it. Because what fun is it if it's not an insult to me?
Right, exactly.
And that's the power I had, and I snatched that up in my early 20s. Yes. And so I'm like, oh yeah, no, I've seen people my age and younger even do it with fag and faggot and dyke, and like we're taking so much away from them.
Yep.
Because we have that power.
Yes.
We have that power. Words mean what we say they mean.
Yes.
And if we're using the word, we get to define what it means to us. Why are we still giving people the power to make us feel any kind of way? When I use it as my word, and I feel great when I use that word.
Yeah, was triggered thinking back to the high school playground.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
And I just kind of remember the first derogatory word I was called on the playground was funny. Like, what are you, funny?
Oh.
And like, oh, okay. And it took me like to even process at a young with it. And then later it became, what are you, a faggot? And my retort to that was, no, I don't smoke cigarettes. So that's not, that's not who I am. But it wasn't until later in that little age group that I began to be called queer. And being the little nerdy, somewhat nerdy person I immediately went to the Bible to find the word queer in there. And I couldn't find it. And so I said, they must not be talking about me. Only later, many years later, when all
the Bible, it had nothing to do with me.
nothing to do with me. That word there is not in the Bible. But wasn't a million years later, we get into queer theories, we get into queer theories, like, oh my God, I was there all along and didn't know it. So it was what was once used to be derogatory, to put down, to put the thumb on. I now celebrate, being in my queerness of all of who I am. And we can take artwork or religious work or any type of thing and find our queer selves in it.
Right.
To me, that is the point of liberation. So there are a lot of things now that I read through the lens of queer.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things I still get. Every night I'm triggered by somebody. Well, is this one of those words we can reclaim, we can empower, we can feel empowered by? So call me queer all you want. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's connected.
Queer. I thought you knew.
Well, yeah, a few of folks don't. But it's almost it's a rite of passage. It's a rite of, it connects me now to something much greater than I thought I would ever be connected to.
Right.
And I'm okay with that.
All right.
Yeah, it is. It does connect us to the ancestors, as it were. But here's also the other thing: if you don't like it, don't use it.
Yeah.
And don't use it
But you're
against
not
somebody.
going to take it away from everybody else because it's a done deal. Illinois State, Cal State North, Columbia, University of Washington, College of Worcester, FIU. It's a done deal. These are endowed chairs. It ain't going anywhere.
Yep.
And so my first thesis, my master's thesis for my MA in theater, I wrote a play and then did a process paper about it and presented it, blah, blah. And it was called Queer Realities. It was a play about gay and trans and even death and AIDS, all kinds of stuff. It was called Queer Realities. That was in 2003, flying colors, and that was at Goddard College. Later at Union Theological Seminary, about a third of the faculty was queer, about half the student body was queer, everything was queer. We had queer services, so queer. And then for my doctorate degree at the Episcopal Divinity School, my doctoral thesis was Popular Entertainment as Queer Canon. That was the name. That was put in the bulletin at graduation, that was put on the shelf in the library, and this was at the Episcopal Divinity. I'm telling you, this is how mainstream it is. And these aren't places that officially had queer studies programs, although at Goddard I did take a queer theory seminar. But like even places that don't have the program still teach the classes or encourage students to do the independent work. That is how ubiquitous and mainstream it is. So if you don't like it, I don't like tapioca, I don't eat it. But I'm not going to go on some sort of crusade to get rid of tapioca because enough people do like it that I'm going to be wasting my time. So if you don't like it, okay. But you're going to hear it, people talking about themselves and the larger community because it's been here 50, 60 years already. It's throughout the education system. It's an entire movement. So you don't have to like anything, and you certainly don't have to use anything. But this fighting against it, you won't let me say it, or you don't want it said in any place where we share space. That is unrealistic. And you're gonna have to make peace with that some kind of way. Too many people have been empowered by the word for you to think you have the privilege to decide if anyone gets to use it or not.
Right. Yes.
Well, that's today with the queer God Spot.
Before we go, we want to invite you to join Sunshine Cathedral on a wonderful travel experience and help our mission for our community. Join us on the Florida AIDS Walk Pride Cruise. This unique 3-day cruise will sail from Miami on the $1 billion and ultra-deluxe 170,000-ton MSC Seascape on November 2nd, 2025. The cruise is for the Florida AIDS Walk. Your participation helps 13 vital beneficiaries in our community. The cruise is an incredible value starting at just $199 and is also a fundraiser for the Sunshine Cathedral. Parties, special events, and more aboard, including a special unlimited beverage and open bar with Wi-Fi for all 3 days for just $68. We invite you to join us on this amazing cruise for fun, this vital cruise for good.
I invite you to share this episode on your social media, and I also welcome you to find Sunshine Cathedral on Facebook or Instagram. You can also like our bishop pages on Facebook. My page is Bishop Robert Griffin, D-Men, and Darrell's is Bishop Darrell Watkins, D-Men. We're also on TikTok. Remember to visit sunshinecathedral.org frequently. There you will find also Bishop Talk, where I often talk with Bishop Darrell, interview queer religious leaders, activists, and scholars.
Thank you for joining the Queer God Squad today. We are here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's leading progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together. Remember that we are all in this together.
Also remember, you are God's miracle, not God's mistake. Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.